What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Roll Tide Cafe, a part of the Bama Standard Network. Today is going to be an amazing video as well. Number one, I have Dan James on here. I'll let him introduce himself in a second. But look, we're talking about recruiting. And then you add in Dan James, who's the leading analyst here for recruiting. I don't know if I could possibly be more excited to do a video here today. So with that being said, Dan, I appreciate you being on here today, man.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, always a pleasure, to be on and spend time with my, coworkers at the Bama Standard Network.
All right, today, guys, we're going to be going over the Alabama 2026 recruiting class and give you guys an update on who we have so far and getting Dan James, the expert, on here, his take and a little bit of my take as well on the 5 players we have at Alabama committed so far in the class of 2026. And Dan, overall, when you look at this class, it's ranked 30th according to 24/7 Sports, which is what I use all my metrics for. We're not going to look at that because we know some of the best players wait to the very end. You know what I mean? And some of them do it now. It's just all over the place. So we don't really count anything until it gets around February time frame. And we're talking about National Signing Day when all this stuff ends. But with that being said, James, this is one of my most exciting recruits to look at. When you're talking about 5-star cornerback Jordan Edmonds, please give me the down low on this dude.
Yes. A guy that, Alabama was able to build a relationship with early. It's no small feat to go into the state of Georgia and pull a recruit that Georgia is very high on, So that was a big win early, Fortunately, we were the first one to see him and evaluate him. And so we were the first one to build a relationship with him. And it's going to be a task, to hold on to him because Georgia's not giving up. But, he loves Tuscaloosa. He feels like home. His parents have signed off on it. His mom loves it. He loves it. He knows the campus very well. So this is one that I think we can hold on until the end, So and talk about him as a player, corner with his length, he's similar to Bijan Lee. He can run. He won MVP at a camp in Atlanta, So this is a guy that's very athletic, plays the ball very well. He can move around, very versatile defender. He can play press man, play off coverage, but he is a prototypical boundary corner, when you talk about our defense.
There you go. So just some side notes here. We're talking about, like I said, a 5-star, number 1 cornerback in this class, like I said, according to 24/7 Sports, number 10 player nationally, 6'2 and a half, 175 pounds. Once again, like you said, opposite of Bijan Lee at 6'4", the length and both of them being boundary corners, shutting down that field. You're talking about a no-fly zone coming in. Right. My goodness, these guys, the possibility of both of them being on the field together is crazy. Out of Marion, Georgia, like you said, plays for Sprayberry. So definitely not playing some chumps, right? So playing quality competition here. Okay. Like you said, versatile defender, plays both corner and receiver. It seems like when you see a lot of these top-tier corners, it seems like they have a habit of playing receiver, which obviously gives you the knack of knowing routes, right? High pointing the ball, all that good stuff. As off-the-chart combine numbers, I feel like possibly first round, second rounder in the NFL based on combine numbers. When you're talking about speed, length, everything else, craziness. Like you said, earned Alpha Dog at Navy, All-American Bowl game, has played the multiple schemes, excels in off-man coverage, but like you said, can play in basically anything, honestly. In my opinion, from the film, high points the ball better than almost anybody in this class, and that includes, by the way, the wide receivers. That tells you how special this kid is. And extremely competitive in all phases. We're talking about body position, hand fighting, all that good stuff, contact, which I love to see because I love those good old days of hard-nosed defense, right? So, all right. So anything else on Jordan Edmonds before you move on to the next recruit?
No, let's get to it.
All right. Next one up. Well, another cornerback, Zayn Gibson, right? So give me your down low on Zayn Gibson.
Oh, yes. A guy that, we always had the inside track on, I feel, same school as Drake Patrick Jr. He had the relationship. So Alabama's been on him since, probably his freshman year in high school. He's always been to Tuscaloosa, very comfortable there with the school. So, he was comfortable enough to go ahead and commit early, So he's a very athletic corner, top 10 corner by every recruiting service, and he's one that I think, you could put on the shelf, let him develop, but I wouldn't put it past him, playing early. You know, he's that kind of talent. You know, he has a high ceiling, very high ceiling. You know, he also has a little length to him, 6 foot, 6'1". You know, he plays the ball well, and he can come up and pop you. You know, so that's thing you like to see with a defensive back in this scheme. So, you know, he can come up and run support, and you know, a very versatile defender as well.
Man, you pretty much stole everything from me there. It feels like you almost read my notes. The number 6 corner in this class, according to 24/7 Sports, 65th player nationally, 6 foot, 174 pounds, out of Gadsden, Alabama. It's like you said, Drake Patrick Jr. I only looked at film here for the most part. I put athletic freak of nature. Yeah, you're right. So he plays corner, wide receiver, and punt returner. Fight for body and hand position, just like Edmonds does, has very deceptive speed and will thump you if you misgauge the spacing. If you do not pay attention, you will be laying flat on your back, and that includes in blocking here. Like you said, not afraid to help and run support for sure. In my opinion, you'll see him more often than not, probably on special teams, maybe his freshman season, in my opinion, as a punt returner, if not kickoff coverage, because extremely fast, will hit you hard.
Right.
So, all right. So moving on here. Zayn, definitely one to watch out for here. Edge, Jarian Matthews, my favorite one, in my opinion, of this class, but I'm not going to steal the show. Take it away, Dan.
Yeah, let me tell you about it. It's amazing, you know, because I said it on my show, The Final Whistle, you know, and it's amazing. You said it, the same thing, you know. We haven't talked before today.
Yeah, crazy.
But we both came away with Will Anderson vibes. You know, when I watched this film, his get off, everything is very comparable to Will Anderson, and I think he has the best get off of any lineman I've seen so far. And I watched a lot of D-line film. You know, the guy is explosive. You know, he gets off the ball very fast and has a very solid punch. You know, he can bend, you know, so he's going to be a very, you know, we're projecting him at the bandit position. Yep. You know, he's going to put on more weight. You know, you hope he doesn't lose the explosion. You know, sometimes that happens when you add more weight to the kids. But, man, he's one that I really like. You know, he could also play Wolf. You know, it hasn't been set in stone yet. But right now I think they project him as bandit. And he's one I expect to continue to grow. You know, I think before it's all said and done, he'll be a top 50 by the time everyone gets an eye on him and all the recruiting services catch up.
No doubt. So Jarian, like I said, is my favorite of this group so far. And like my favorite just because I watch his film. Like you said, it just gives you the vibe of Will Anderson, maybe a style of Dallas Turner, right? Like maybe a mixture if they had a baby here. 6'2", 240 pounds, the 15th ranked edge, 129th nationally, out of Gainesville, Georgia, Gainesville High School. Now, here's my notes on him. I could talk all day about him, but here's just the notes. I'll shorten it up to. Number 1, his stats last season: 17 sacks, 29 tackles for loss, and 15 QB hurries in 10 games. Right. So only in 10 games. And he didn't play all the game, by the way, in all those games. Right. So if that tells you anything here, I put very overlooked and could definitely is a potential superstar here. Shows he can attack the QB with speed, power, and quickness. See, here's where I disagree with a lot of the evaluators, and I'm not an evaluator, but a lot of them talk about speed to power, and that's his biggest asset. But when you look at it, he has the finesse. He makes moves on the inside, and I know the most recent camp he went to, he showed all three. He dominated the offensive line. Right. So showing he could get up to quarterback using all three here. Earned Armor Nashville Alpha Dog. I put very great, which Will Anderson was really good at this, at bending the edge, right? Getting around that edge. High motor that finishes plays standing up and hands in the dirt, and eats up contact, and didn't see one tackle or guard keeping their back foot planted against him. That tells you the power this man has as well. So that's pretty much all my notes on Jarian Matthews. Definitely super excited to see him if he inks that thing to Tuscaloosa. So moving on here to number 4 here. We're talking about interior lineman Chris Booker. I know you see him playing a lot of tackle on his film, but he's definitely projected to be an interior lineman, unless, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan James, at the guard position when he comes to Tuscaloosa. But go ahead and take this away.
Yeah, this is another one. You know, these guys, one thing these guys have in common is they were early evaluations. You know, Alabama was able to, you know, get the guy on campus. He showed up for the first junior day. Alabama liked him, talked to him, loved the film, and they were able to get him on campus a couple of times, build the relationship, and then everyone else started catching up. He got after the Alabama offer, of course, Georgia, yep. Auburn, the Tennessees, everyone started, the offer started coming in, and he's one that Courtney Morgan, you have to give this all to Courtney Morgan. He's best at what he does when it comes to evaluating films right now. And this kid here, great frame to work with, 6'4", 284 pounds. He's projected as the interior, prototypical guard in this type of offense that we have now. We're going with the more lean, athletic lineman. He can get out in space, could pin and pull. And he's one that I expect to continue to go up as well. I think only one, if I'm not mistaken, only one recruiting service has him ranked. That's on 3 right now, at 214, the number 10 interior offensive lineman. So, other recruiting services, they'll catch up eventually, but he's another one that can only move up, in the recruiting service when it's all said and done. But very physical blocker. He has a mean streak. That's one thing that stood out to me when I watched his film. He gets a guy on the ground and he's not done there, so he can get a little nasty. That's something you like to see from an offensive lineman.
And Dan, I swear, it feels like you read my freaking notes, man, before we got on here. So 6'4", 270, now he's over 280 pounds. Look, the recruiting services are actually all over the place with Chris, right? 24/7 has him at number 24 interior lineman, 303 nationally. He's definitely going to go up. There's no doubt about that. Out of Atlanta, Georgia, Hateful Charter is where he plays at. Plays mainly left tackle when you look at his film in high school right now, but like you said, prototypical leaner guard at Alabama. Shows great strength. And I put outstanding at getting to the second level and attacking linebackers and safeties coming downhill. So like you said, that pin and pull and stuff like that, that works out perfect for this style of offense, obviously. And my last note, which you took from me, man, it feels like plays with offensive lineman aggression.
Yes.
Right. When you look at Ryan Grubb coming into Alabama this season, in spring, you heard one thing is like he brought an offensive lineman aggression and style, right? Not just to the offense, but he just has that way with himself. He obviously used to be an offensive lineman, offensive line coach. So he has that mean streak to him. And yeah, you definitely see that in Chris Booker here. So moving on here to the very last player in this class so far. Talking about edge, Marion Johnson. Another one I think is a little bit overlooked, but Dan, let's take this away.
Oh, yeah. Now I'm glad. I couldn't wait to get to this one. This one is my favorite. I challenge anyone to go and show me 2 better defensive line film in the country. There's no way this guy is not a top 50 player in the country. 6'3", 200, to be able to do the things that he can do. He runs sideline to sideline. He's 265. He can play with his hand in there. He can play standing up. And that when you watch his huddle, that's the first thing. He stands up and he runs plays down, sideline to sideline, defensive lineman. We talked about Jarian Matthews and Will Anderson. Well, this guy here, he gives me Trayvon Walker vibes. He's a very, number 1 overall pick a few years ago. Very athletic big man. They don't just grow on trees. So Alabama was able to get a diamond in the rough, no doubt, with this one. And he's no doubt a surefire star in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, it's crazy when you look at Marion here. They have him ranked 24/7. Once again, folks, these rankings are going to change dramatically leading all the way up to National Signing Day, right, in this upcoming February, which is a long ways away. But we're talking about the number 32 edge. 351st nationally. That's going to definitely change a lot. 6'3", 262 pounds. His weight's increasing. His height's going to increase a little bit, obviously. Out of Muscle Shoals, Alabama. High motor and will chase you sideline to sideline. Plays mainly standing up and can put his hands in the dirt. Put chase downs quarterbacks and running backs constantly. For his size and his ability to go sideline to sideline, that is the absolute number 1 thing that stood out to me on his film. Was that, and it seems very solid in run support for his size as well. He can definitely maneuver and he can push those big bodies around on the interior, which I love. So it's not just about the speed on the outside, right? So it's also about the strength on the inside. And I think he's kind of the complete package when it comes to this. So Yeah, that's all I have for him. Any last words when it comes to this recruiting class? And yeah, I have to give Courtney Morgan a shout out. Look, when it comes to the evaluations, it seems like this dude is spot on and he is earning every dime the university is paying him.
Yes, no doubt. Two guys, I love the defensive guys, the two defensive linemen. One word I haven't used to describe both of them, and that's relentless. Both of them are relentless pursuits of to the ball carrier, and that's another thing that I love to see from a big guy. They're chasing down plays. They're not lazy, trotting behind the plate. They are arriving. When they arrive with aggression. And so that's another thing that stood out about with both of them. They're arriving. They pack a punch. By the time they get to you, they are angry. So, you love to see that.
There's one thing you can't teach. It's work ethic. And the way these guys have the high motor, it seems like they're willing to work. They're willing to put in the work. And look, you come into this, this system's Kane Womack defense. You have a lot of potential to see these guys pretty early on, obviously. So hopefully so. But other than that, if you want to, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you at. And let's wrap up the video.
Okay. You can find me on Twitter at the Final Whistle Dan. You find me on Instagram, Dan James IV, and thank you guys. Thank you for having me on, Jonathan. It's always a pleasure,
No, of course. So with that being said, guys, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'm also going to put a link to Dan's most recent live stream in the description below. So make sure to check him out. Make sure to check out all the videos on the Bama Standard Network. And as always,
roll down Tide.
Roll Tide.